Hey friends, what's up? Derek here from Bomb Socks, back with another week of Bomb Bites, where we feast upon the words of Christ, one bite at a time. So this week I'm excited to get into Romans chapter 7 through 16. We're basically finishing the book of Romans. And like with Romans, like you read last week, you know, it's a deep book. It can get pretty intense with a lot of its stuff, but it is wonderful. It is worth the price to pay to be able to study through this book and be able to find some wonderful gems. So to start off Romans chapter 7 today, I actually want to start somewhere different. I want to take you over to 2 Nephi chapter 4 in the Book of Mormon. You're going to see why I'm going here in just a second. This is one of my favorite chapters in the Book of Mormon. It is known as the Psalm of Nephi. They're like the Psalms. They have very much almost a song feel to them. So the context here in 2 Nephi chapter 4, early on in the chapter, Lehi dies. It talks about how in verse 13, not many days after his death, Laman and Lemuel and the sons of Ishmael were angry with me because of the admonitions of the Lord. So they're angry with their brother Nephi. You see this happening a lot because Nephi is now in charge of the family. And so now you start going through and you see almost the human side of Nephi, because up to this point he's Mr. I will build a ship large in stature. He almost seems very untouchable and just like, how do I reach that ideal? But then you get into verse number 17. Nevertheless, notwithstanding the great goodness of the Lord in showing me his great and marvelous works, my heart exclaimeth, O wretched man that I am. When I see that phrase, I'm like, finally I can relate to Nephi, right? Yea, my heart sorroweth because of my flesh. Keep that in mind. That's going to play a big role this whole week. My soul grieveth because of mine iniquities. I am encompassed about because of the temptations and the sins which do so easily beset me. When I think of Nephi, I don't think of temptations and sins that easily fall upon the flesh of Nephi. And when I desire to rejoice, my heart groaneth because of my sins. Nevertheless, I know in whom I have trusted. And I really do think these verses set up the entire week, because now you go over to Romans chapter 7, you see some very, very similar verbiage that Paul is teaching. Now, you remember this concept that Nephi is like, look, I want to do this, but also I have the fleshy side of me that is struggling with sin and temptation, those things that easily beset me. You go to verse number 14. Now, Paul has just explained in the previous verses that the law of Moses it's there. It's not a bad thing. The law was not a bad thing. It was just what the children of Israel needed at that point. And what it helped them do is to be able to choose between right and wrong. So the law is not a bad thing. It's when you focus too much on the law, not the reasons you're actually doing it. That's where it becomes a problem. You're going to see this here. Romans 7, verse 14, for we know that the law is spiritual. Again, he's like, look, the law it's not a bad thing, but I am carnal, sold under sin, or it says devoted to or a slave to sin. Now, this phrase is crazy. For that which I do, I allow not. For what I would, that do I not, but what I hate, that do I. Now, that's a fancy way of just saying, I don't know why I do what I do sometimes. I think I want to do good, but oftentimes I don't find myself doing good, right? Verse 16, if then I do that which I would not, I consent unto the law that it is good. Now, then, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Now, there's a lot of cool footnotes in here as well that give you the Greek translation of what this is. Like when it says the word would, the Greek is often shown as choose, intend, or design. It's like, I really choose. I want to do what is right, but I don't always find myself doing it. Now, check out verse 18. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh. Now, you remember what Nephi talked about. Dwelleth no good thing. Now, we'll talk about that more tomorrow. For to will is present with me. It's like, I want to do this, but how to perform that which is good, I find not. Now, it's interesting. You click on the word perform, look where it takes you. It takes you over to 2 Nephi chapter 4. So Paul and Nephi are preaching the same things here. Verse 20, now, if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Now, again, temptation is to blame it on Satan. Like, he did it. Now, we give Satan all of his power. There is power here that we have to be able to choose who to follow. Verse 21, I find then a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me. Now you click on the word present. Again, it takes you over to 2 Nephi chapter 4. Paul and Nephi, like I said, teaching the same thing here. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man. We have that inward spiritual individual that loves to do good within us. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. I love this verse. Some of you heard me say many times, there's a phrase in my patriarchal blessing. It says, upon the battlefields of our minds are fought some of the greatest of all battles. And I've found that to be very, very relevant to so many situations in my life, because oftentimes there is goodness in me that wants to do these good things, but I find myself warring with not the inward man, but with the natural man. There's that fight there. Like I said, we'll talk more about this throughout the week. Verse 24, here's where you see another phrase right from Nephi, "O wretched man that I am." So Paul and Nephi are both just like, how do I overcome the desire to be able to do bad when I have that desire within me to do what is good? Now, Nephi, for the rest of his psalm, gives some wonderful verses. I would invite you to read the rest of them because I think they do fit very well with what we're studying this week in the Come Follow Me. But I love what Paul says in verse 25. I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then, with the mind I myself serve the law of God, but with the flesh, the law of sin. So Paul is trying to show you and I how to overcome the natural man, how to conquer that natural man this week. And so as we're going through the rest of this week, Paul gives amazing counsel to be able to show us how to overcome and conquer the natural man within us, so the spiritual man who wants to do what is good can be able to triumph. And so please keep that in mind as we're going through this week, and I think you'll see some very relevant things to help you through this crazy adventure of trying to conquer that natural man within us. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks as always for sharing. We are so grateful that you do that. Thanks for helping us get these messages out to people. And if you haven't already, please go check out our amazingly comfortable gospel-themed socks at bombsocks.com. Godspeed, and we'll see you tomorrow with one of my favorite chapters. Take care. Bye-bye.